Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Maseches NIDAH Daf Nun Hey. We begin 3 lines from the top of the Amud B'Sar Hames. So back to the Mishnah, which presented a comprehensive list of materials which convey tumah, but they have to be in their fresh state, lach, as opposed to dried out, yavesh, which no longer retains its tumah. 2 exceptions to the rule are dam of a nidah and also basar of a mesa, of a dead person. These are metame even when they're dried out. Dam of nidah we discussed yesterday. How do we know that this applies to basar and mesa as well? Basar mes minon. How do we know that even dried out basar and mesa is metame? We have 2 answers. Amr ish lakish. We have a pasuk which covers it. Amar kro l'chol tumasai, to all his tumais, and we learn l'chol tumais aborshis b'menu. It covers all tummy material which is discharged from a person, including the basar ha'meis, even once dried up. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he has a different pasuk that even dried flesh of a meis is matami. Oy be'etzem avar. This is back in the Parshas Chukas, in the Parshas Para. Oy be'etzem adam oy be'kaver. Be'etzem adam, human compared to an etzem. Etzem is dry. So even the human flesh, which is bone dry, is still matami. Oy be'etzem adam oy be'kaver. We learn adam, the man, dumi de'etzem, comparable to the bone. Ma'etzem yavish, just like a bone is dry. Afkan yavish, likewise, the basar that was speaking is even yavish, even bone dry, will give off tumah. This is in addition to Rish Lakish's pasuk. Any difference between the 2 sources might be nayu. The difference will be like this. Let's say it's super dry, the afrechi fruchi. So there are several stages of dryness that the basar of the mace can experience. It can be totally moist, which we'll call stage number 1. It can be somewhat dry, which is the yavish discussed in the Mishnah. Then we have further africh afruchi. It's brittle. It's to the point of brittle. Is that also going to be matame? Well, it depends how you learn. If it's Rabbi Yechanan, he says it has to be bone dry, but it could be bone dry, but not past that point. Because once it's brittle, it's even drier than a bone. Whereas according to Rish Lakish, l'chol tumasai covers even this degree of dryness. We'll call it level 3. Now comes level 4. Meis, here comes a kash. Basar ha'meis, flesh of a meis shuhufrach, which has dried to the point of becoming brittle, tahar. It no longer is metame. It's a kash on Rish Lakish, who seem to cover even this state of dryness. Says the Gemara, that's stage 4 dry. Hasam da akmach. It's like a powdery, like flour, like becomes like dirt. Totally lost its basar properties. In which case even Rish Lakish agrees. It's like the dirt in the ground, and is no longer metame. Meis becomes a kasha. So we say that even dried materials of a meis are metame. Meis kol sheba meis metame. Any part of a meis is metame except chutz, nashanayim, vaseyar, vatzipirin. So if a tooth or hair or nail of the mace is separated from the mace, it no longer has its tumah. When it's still attached to the mace, it's part of that entity, and it can make tumah as well. But if it's detached, it loses its status, and the question is why? The fact that it's dry should not be an inhibitor, based on the psukim presented by both Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yechanan. So what's missing? What's wrong with the bone, with the tooth, with the hair, right? Why are they not metame? Amar Avada bar Ava. Well, it's true, anything that's part of this package is metame, but it has to be similar to the etzem. The pasuk says oy be'etzem adam. It has to share features with the etzem. It has to have similar characteristics. Dumi the etzem. And what defines one's bones? They were there from day 1. They didn't develop later, like one's teeth, which come later. Ma'etzem, just like a bone, shenivrima, born, created with the person himself. Af kol shenivrima, likewise, only something which shares that feature created with the person himself as part of that core person entity, as opposed to teeth, which arrived only later. Asks the Gemara, okay, that discounts teeth, but what about the hair and nails that one's born with? And you exempt them from tumah tahir, you make them tahir. Why? The answer is, we need another feature as well. El Omar Vadabrav, Tumi the Etzem. It has to be similar to a bone, which is Ma'etzem Shnibri, just like a bone was there from day one. And it can't regenerate. If it's removed, it can't regrow and regenerate. So it's so inherent, so core to the person. Afkar likewise. Anything which shares those features. Sheniver Imai, number one. Number two, Ve'engiz and Machal cannot be replaced. That's included. As opposed to Yatzo Shanaim, teeth, Sheniver Imai. They're not there from day one. They only came later. And as opposed to hair and nails, Yatzo Seir Ritzipern, that although they share the first element with the bone, but they can be replaced. Gizay Machlif. They can regenerate after being removed. Fine. Says, what about one's skin? Very oyer. To Gizay Machlif, the assumption is it can regenerate. How do I know? This now we have a Mishnah back in Maseches Chulin. What constitutes a treifa? We have an example of hagluda. Rashi says an animal was put to work a bit too much, and he shed his skin and got rubbed out, or due to some skin condition, so he's skinless. Is that considered a critical wound, which renders him a treifa, forbidden for consumption? Or Meir Machshir says it's okay. And we assume the reason is because it can regenerate and regrow. It's just a temporary blemish. The Chachamim Paislim, they say, it's a treifa. And the truth is, even the Rabban who disqualify him, it's only because until it grows back, he's going to be exposed to the elements, unprotected from bacteria and germs. Because in the interim, Sholt Ba'avir, the Avir, and all the airborne agents and visitors might affect him. Umeisa, he'll die. So he'll be affected by the elements. He'll certainly die, and that's a treif. But certainly when it comes to the actual question of whether skin can regrow, they would agree it regrows. But until that happens, he'll be affected by the elements. And therefore is considered a treifa who has no longevity. So once we establish that as a fact, that oyer is something that can regrow and regenerate, let's go a step further. The question is oyer of a meis metame? So let's look further. With Tanina, we have a Mishnah back in Maseches Chulin as well, which states as follows: Elu she'ersem kivsaran. We have some skins which are halachically treated regarding tumah like the flesh itself, because of their softness and pliability. Oyra adam, human skin. Okay, so what do we see from here? The human skin is metame like his basar. The question is why? If it needs to have those unique, defining characteristics, like the etzem, one of which is that it's a one-time deal, it doesn't regenerate, can't regrow. Well, here it does regrow, and it's still metame. The answer is Ha'itmar. We have explained on that Mishnah that really minat Torah it's not. You're right. It's not metame because it's not core. It's not inherent to the mace. It can be replaced. Amar ula dvar Torah adam tar. Minat Torah really. Human skin is tar. Matam amur tami. Why did Chacham apply a tumah? Gzeira for concern that he might misuse human flesh, human skin. Chas v'shalom. Shami yasa adam oirois av v'imay chas v'shalom shtichem l'chamay. He might use his parents' skin as a mat for his donkey. So you're right. In order to be matame, you have to be something niver imoy, something like ein gizay machlif, and that disqualifies teeth, hair, nails, and really skin as well, because it can regenerate. It's just telling me the Rabbanan. Now comes a totally different version of this discussion, which will hold that actually skin is irreplaceable. And then first we'll explain it's not a question of happenance, it's a question of perspective. It certainly seems to repair itself. The question is it really a new piece of skin sort of replacing the old one, or is it just the sort of maybe the lower layer of skin? There are many layers, which sort of hardens and stiffens and presents as skin. So it's a question of perspective. So here comes version 2. Because Amr, some learned, it's the opposite. Skin is not something which can replace itself. Vesnan, as we learned in the Mishnah back in the Mesechus Chulin. So according to this, the inference will be just the opposite. V'cham paislim. So by the skinless animal, Chacham say it's pasul, it's a treifa, as opposed to Rameir says it's okay. I feel Rameir like kamachsha. And you should know, even Rameir, it's not because he holds that it can replace itself. Allah the kara, bisra, v'chaya, he holds that the flesh beneath that shaved skin will harden and that's how the animal will make it. But even he agrees that it's not the skin that's actually replacing itself. And certainly it doesn't replace itself. And you would think, if so, that it's so core and inherent to the mace, it should be metami. And still Ul explained to us regarding the question of whether human skin is metami. He says, no, it's only midrabanan, adam tahar, not Torah is tahar. The question now is, should the opposite? Why? It should be tami. The answer is like this. You're right, it is tami. Ki itmar dula seifa itmar ulos. Point that it's metami derabanan is not going on the actual main halacha addressing human skin. Of course, that's metami not Torah. He's going on the next part, aseifa itma, the next part of the discussion regarding human skin, which had been turned into leather, had been processed. But cool, and all those skins she'ibdan, which he processed, or shehilach behen, or he trampled upon them, kadeya avoida. The amount of time it takes for it to get processed, it's a share of a meal, about 18 minutes or so. So it loses its human skin status, and it's tar. It's no longer loses its tumah. It's no longer considered like skin. It's become leather. It's tar. So that's the way it should be. Umatam amru tami. So why did Chacham say differently that by human skin it stays tami, by animal skin it's tar, but by human gezerah, because of a concern that he might inappropriately misappropriate his parents' his relative's skin. Umatam amru tami gezerah sham yasa adam oir ave v'imo shtichen. But in reality, the skin, of course, is metami, unless it was tanned, unless it was processed, in which case it loses its skin status. And even then, with Rabbanon, by oir adam, it stays tami because of his special concern. Ask the Gemara one more question about basar, about actual flesh. To give a machlef, we're assuming flesh does replace itself, does regrow. So why is the basar of a mace metami? If it's tummy, it's still tummy. It doesn't seem to fit our criteria. Truthfully, it doesn't really grow properly. It leaves a scar, so it's not really restored to its former, self. And that's why it's not considered gizeh machlev, it's not considered replaceable, rather it's considered irreplaceable, and therefore it's inherent and core to the actual mace, and it will convey his tumah. In conclusion, a mace is metzame. What part of the mace? It needs to have two conditions, niver imay and en gizeh machlev. So that disqualifies shinayim, which are not niver imay. Likewise, seir v'tzipern, which can replace themselves. Oir, skin, that was two ways to look at that, and basar is certainly included because it's not gizeh machlev. Aval hazayv. So we spoke about basar mace, which is metami even in its dry state, in contrast to typical tummy materials like the zoiv of a zav, which is metami only when it's in its liquid, moist state. Aval hazoiv is only metami lach. Now the question is, to begin with, how do we know that Zoiv is Mitzami? We know the person who experiences that emission is Tami. How do we know the actual material that he emitted is Tami? Zoiv Minol, in the sign you have a brisa. Zoivai, Tami. We learn from this pasuk, Limad al Zoiv, that the actual material, Shu Tami. Why do we need a pasuk? Isn't it plain logic? Look, if it activates Tumah on the person who generated it, certainly it in itself, it's a source of Tumah. Of course it's Tami. Look, it's based on a Kal V'choyim, Al Acherim Gar and Tumah. If he's causing Tumah to others, to his host, wouldn't you think that he himself is Tamil Asma Koshke? Well, that's not such a simple equation. That can be disproven from looking at the Sar Mishtalech and Yom Kippur. The person handling the Sar Mishtalech becomes Tamil, but he itself, the animal itself, walking to the desert is still Tar. Likewise, don't be surprised on the Ziva material, even though he's activating Tum on his host, he still can remain Tar. That's what I would think. Comes the pasuk Zoyvay Tamei. The Ziva itself is Tamei. Limeid, we learn Allah Zoyv, the material itself should Tamei. But to what extent? How Tamei? Ve'ema, perhaps I can still suggest. Hanim Ilubimanga. That's limited to actually touching it. It can convey that way, but perhaps if he's simply carrying it indirectly without touching it, who says he gets affected? I even have a precedent for that. Something which is metami b'maga, only NIDAH sheret. Look at the sherets. Omar baby arbai b'magalis rukro. If only to teach us that it conveys through direct transmission, you would need a pasuk for that. Why would Ziva be worse than Shechva Zera, which we know? Pasuk says is metami. It's a similar material coming from the same area. So you would need a pasuk for that. Ki itzra we turn to my base. So what then is the pasuk for? What tuma are we applying to the Ziva la Masa to teach us even Masa is a medium for tuma? Fine, granted. But how severe of a tuma will be conveyed through merely carrying? Vema b'masa. Metama adam ubegadim. Yeah, maybe Masa is worse than Maga. Maybe if he carries it, so he's carrying the full brunt of that Ziva, he becomes severely affected to the extent that the person and his clothing that he's wearing, become tummy. But let's say he's just touching it. Maybe that's not such a severe medium of contacting tuma. But maga, so yeah, adam matame. It's matame, the person touching it. But begadol matame, perhaps it would not affect the clothing on him. I'll even have a precedent for that. We look at a nevela, which runs a similar system. A dead animal. You touch it, only you become tummy, not your begadim. You lift it. It's you and your begadim. Perhaps here as well, you can't suggest such a distinction. So they quote a pasuk, a brayso, hazav ezayvay. So in the brayso we have the shita v'acherim, hazav ezayvay, l'zachar nekeva. Hazav ezayvay. What is the pasuk connecting here? The person, the zav, to his zayv, to his material. And then l'zachar nekeva, they can become tummy in this fashion. So what's the point of this connection? Makish zoyvay loy. The Torah, by connecting the ziva material to the person himself, is telling us mahu, just like the person himself. Loy chilakta bin magoy l'masay. No difference whether the zav himself touches or carries. Or if a person touches him and carries him, rather. So whether you touched him or you carried him, you and your begadim become tummy. There are psukim about it. Af zoyva yikain, the same exact model applies to a ziva. Okay, so that concludes that there's no difference between touching or carrying the ziva. It's metame in a very severe way, the person and his begadim. Now the question is, why this repetition? It seems redundant. We have this pasuk, hazav ezayvay, to give the ziva the same status as the zav, which is in addition to the earlier pasuk in Amud Aleph. Zoyvay tami, his ziva is tami as well. Why two psukim for the same point? Ba'ashta, now, the nafkalan, we have derived the tumah of the ziva to the full extent, right? From this pasuk, hazav ezayvay. So then the first pasuk, zoyvay tami, lamali, what's that for? Amar vidam discard. I'll tell you what it's for. There's room to think. It's not just a simple notion to assume that the ziva is metame. Look at the Sorim Shtalech in Yom Kippur. That undoes that notion. Shagarim tumah lacherim, what's my Torah? Like we said before, it causes tumah to others. His handler becomes tummy, despite he himself remaining Torah. Perhaps ziva as well, although he triggers tumah on his host, but he himself stays tummy, Torah. So now, let's go through the two psukim. If only from pasuk number 2, that wouldn't necessarily clarify matters. It wouldn't necessarily apply tumah to the ziva, because I would apply the pasuk differently. It's just a matter of sequence and numbers, teaching us about the process of becoming a zav. It's once, it's seeing it again, seeing it a third time, right? A triple experience makes him a zav, and there are differences in terms of the first 2 times versus the third time regarding oines, if it happened, by accident, some sort of external cause caused it. So the first 2 times by a man is exempt. Third time we treat him like an akeva which has no exempt. All kinds of halachas. Maybe that's what it's for. The us is coming to give us the sequence, the numbers. When the pasuk says hazav, that's the first time chad. Zoyvoy, that's the second time you saw tarti. Ubashlishi, the third time, the pasuk continues, lachor nekeva. Third time, akshir rachman nekeva, Torah compares him to nekeva, where oinus is not an exception. But there's no reference to the status of the actual ziva. That's what I would think. Kosher rachman zoyvoy tami. That's why. We need that first pasuk, zoyvoy tami, outright. No, that the ziva is tami. So the first pasuk is merely coming to introduce the concept that the ziva is tami. Once that's established, once we know that as a fact, now it's a question of extent, parameters of tumah. Now we go to pasuk number 2. We say, look, ooh, that rings a bell. The ziva is metami from that first part, right? We know that. To what extent? Connect the ziva to the person and give him the same extent of tumah. Maga, masa, tami adam, tami b'gadam. V'haroik. Not only is the ziva matami, but the saliva, spit of a zav as well. Roik minolam. How do we know? The sanya v'chiyarak. The zav spits on the tahar. The fellow who's tahar, he becomes tami. Gets affected by coming into contact with the spit of a zav. Ask the Gemara, does it really have to reach its intended recipient? Let's say the zav directs a spit at somebody and it doesn't really reach him. Perhaps that motion, that act itself should affect him. Perhaps even if it doesn't reach the tahar, he gets affected. But tahar. Pasuk says v'chiyarak hazav ba'tahar, has to arrive at its destination. Achi yigav b'tahar. Okay, perhaps only plain saliva. What about all kinds of phlegms and or a nasal drip? The extra vav, Rashi explains, covers all these add-ons. Let's go back to that suggestion. Perhaps even without reaching, even if the spit didn't reach the recipient, perhaps it was tummy. Why would I even suggest a mechatesi? Well, we have a precedent by chalitza. The woman spits towards her brother-in-law, but doesn't necessarily have to reach him. The act of spitting itself is what counts. Perhaps here as well, he can become tummy by having the zav direct to spit at him. We connect the reik over here to the reik from the yavama. Mahasam, just like over there. It need not actually arrive at its destination, even though the lenoga never touched the person. It counts. Here as well, the lenoga even without touching. That's why the pasuk comes and says, Ba'tar. It has to arrive on the tar. Ask the Gemara. Ve'ema, hani mili b'mag. So we know that the roik is certainly matami, but again, to what extent? So it's pretty much a repetition of the previous Gemara. How do we know that the roik is matami, even by merely carrying its weight without actually directly touching it? Ve'emar hani mili b'maga, maybe only through touching. Aval maza, but merely carrying, where you're not actually touching it, maybe you're not affected by the roik. And we have a precedent for that. A sheretz is matami b'maga only. Midah hava sheretz. Amr shlokish. Tanu b'shmoya. A brayso, a makro. It says a chiyarak zav batohar. Bator teaches us, b'masha bi'ator timeslach. As long as it's in the hand of the Torah, even though he's not touching it, it's in a container, he's tummy. We see from here that even masa affects him. Fine, it affects him. To what extent? So it's very similar to the steps we had before. There are different levels of severity. Maybe, a person becomes tummy, but not as begadim. Be'ema, b'masa, matami adam, u'begadim. So if he carries it, so he's carrying the full brunt, so him and his begadim become tummy. But if he's merely touching it, b'maga, okay, adam l'tami, perhaps it's matami, the person touching, but not his clothing. Begadim, loy l'tami. We have a precedent. We have an avela. Midava, amagan avela, person touches an avela. Only he becomes tummy, not his begadim. Amr Rish Lakish, once again, Shmuel, Amr Krobat Tahar. That pasuk again, which teaches us that Tahara shetiharti lacha mokam achar t'meis l'chakan. Even though elsewhere, yes, you will find that a similar situation as this will not affect him to the extent of his begadim becoming affected. It's limited to just a person. So, for instance, what's that? Zamagan avela, when you touch an avela, only you become tummy, not your begadim. So even though elsewhere it poses no concern for the begadim, it's tahara, but here it's different. Here it affects even his begadim. Ask the Gemara ve'ema b'masa d'sheretz. Maybe the elsewhere that the Torah is referring to is the carrying of a sheretz, which is totally inconsequential. You carry a sheretz, you don't become tameh. And that is consequential over here. So again, we're in the realm of carrying. Where there is not an issue, here it's an issue. But back to the question, if you're merely touching the reik, who says you affect your begadim? Answers the Gemara. Im came because if it were so, nichtav krab ba'adam. Instead of saying v'chiyara kazav ba'tahoyer, the pasuk would say he spat at a person, ba'adam. And then we know that as long as he's carrying it, he becomes tummy. In contrast to a sheretz where it doesn't affect you by carrying, here it does. My ba'tahoyer. Why use the word ba'tahoyer? Shmam notarti. That's going to teach us that even really touching it makes you tummy to the extent that it carries over to your begadim as well. Unlike, for instance, touching an avela, which is limited to being matama the person, not his begadim. So again, from the fact that it says ba tahar, we learn two things. Ba tahar, instead of just saying litahar or al tahar, ba means as long as he's in possession, merely holding it, merely carrying it without actually touching it. Even if it's a container, it's indirect handling. The carriage itself is matami. So b'masa we know from the Beis, Rashi says, bator, and the fact that even through maga will affect his begadim. That's from the fact that Torah chose the word bator instead of ba'adam to tell you that even a circumstance where elsewhere is not an issue, such as when you touch an avela, your begadim are unaffected. Here it is an issue. It's matami you and your begadim. So in conclusion, the roik of Ezav, including kichai v'niyai, all those things are matame. Roik is because it says roik in the Torah, and v'chiyara covers all the other discharges as well. We learned that it actually has to come into contact with the recipient, but to her, and the Beis and the choice of words teach us that it's matame b'maga b'masal tami adam tami b'gad. Umayaf. What about nasal drips? That's also matame as per the Zav's other discharges. The question is, what exactly is this? And what's the reason for mayaf being matame? We're going to see later that in order to qualify as a ma'ayon hazav, the bodily liquids of a zav are not all matame, not all considered avatuma to the highest extent, only if they qualify as a ma'ayon, a wellspring, a source of liquids, and it has to fit a certain description. It has to be misagel. We'll see tomorrow. The misagel v'yetz has to sort of accumulate and then spurt out, etc. So the question is, why does me'af qualify? My me'af, Amarav. You're right. It doesn't really qualify. It doesn't really share those characteristics. Rather, b'negror derech hapeh. We're speaking that he sort of absorbed, he sucked it through from his nasal cavity into his mouth cavity, and now it's mixed in with his saliva, which is certainly a mayan, and certainly qualifies to be matami. It's impossible to have it without a mix now. To have the me'af on their own, without droplets of saliva. It's according to Rav, the me'af per se doesn't really qualify as being an avatuma. It's only because of the mixed with the reik. Rabbi Yechon Omar, no, I feel even if they're just dripping straight out of the nostrils, they qualify. Why? Alma Kasavar, he holds, apparently, Mayanu is considered a Mayan. Rachman Rabbi and Torah included it, like the other Mayonis, from the Pasuk, V'chiyarik, the extra Vav, covers all the other discharges as well. That are similar to the Reik. Ask the Gemara, Rav, Nachshav Nami, Dimas Einai, according to Rav, that the Me'af are Metame because they get channeled through because they were channeled through the mouth. So what about eye tears? Tears can also run that same channel, and if that's the case, it should have the same status. Damar Rav, as we learned from Rav, if one wants to chas v'shalom blind himself, go to the local guy for treatment. Ask a guy to insert some, ointment into his eye, and that can endanger the patient, the client, from the guy treating him. Levi says, the person wants to actually die. Do the same. Have the guy treat him, for concern that he might actually poison him through his eye. Why did Rav speak about blindness and not about actual life and death issues? Because that there was a solution, a way to extract this poison and rid himself of this danger by sucking it through his mouth and spitting it out. So clearly Rav holds that eye liquid can be channeled through the mouth. So then why is Rav limiting his discussion to me'af? Giving it to him because it could be channeled through the mouth. The same would apply to any liquid. There's nothing unique about me'af. Even tears can go through that same channel and be mixed in with spit and become tummy. The answer is like this: for Rav, Nihid Ziyara Nafik. True, Rav will hold that he can extract the poisonous element, suck it from the eye into the mouth and spit it out, but the masu gufali nafik, but the actual tear material itself does not travel that way, in which case it would not have any tumah for this reason. So it's not feasible for it to be mixed in with saliva. It never goes through that channel. Tashma comes a kasha. So once again, what about me'af? It's certainly mitami. The question is why? According to Rav, it's not inherently tummy. Rather, only because it gets mixed in, circumstantially gets mixed in while it's traveling through the mouth, with his reik. According to Rabbi Yechon, it's inherently a mayan. It has its own qualifying element of tumah. Tashma comes to kasha Rabbi Yechon from a brisa, which seems to say that it's not a qualifying mayan. Tisha mashka hazav. In fact, we list a total of 9 types of discharges from a zav, with 3 different categories, 3 different statuses. First we have hazeya, sweat, valecha srucha, some sort of pus, varei, solid waste, teir miklum. They have no tumah, they're not dimas einai. What about tears, v'dam gafasai, or blood dripping from his wound, v'chalav isha, woman's milk, metamen, tumas mashkum ravi. It's not considered a mayan hazav. There are certainly liquids, they're qualifying liquids, so if they have a certain minimal amount, they're ravias, halug, then they're tummy, like any other tummy liquid, but they don't have the status of an avatuma with the whole 9 yards. Ava, like the next category, aval zoivoi, but the actual ziva material, roikai, his spit, maybe ragla, his wastewater. These are considered ma'ayonis and are tummy to the highest degree. Avatuma, matamatuma chamura, they convey the highest form of tumah. End quote. What about the me'af, which according to Rabbi Yechanan is also a qualifying ma'ayon. Vilu me'af like tani, there's no mention of me'af. Now, Bishlam Rav like tani, I understand fully why according to Rav it's not mentioned, because the me'af is not tummy by its own right. If it's channeled through, right? It's not clear cut discussion to present, because Zimnan Da'asi Derech HaPeh, sometimes it's channeled through the mouth, so it's Tameh because of the mixtures, and Zimnan Da'asi Derech HaChaydim, sometimes it's directly out of the nose, so it's not my tummy. So we leave it out. El Rabbi Yechon, Kont Rabbi Yechon, listening. If it's a mine, it should be on the list. V'tamech, according to you, does the list cover all items that belong there? Kichai v'nir miktani, the phlegm and all that we certainly qualifies a mine as per the previous brisa. Is it on our list? So that's not even on the list. Apparently, it's not a complete list. Rather, the brisa referenced the roik, which is the actual material in the pasuk, and certainly it covers all other discharges that are covered by that pasuk. The vav covers all these similar types of discharges. Here as well regarding the me'af. That's the answer. It's included. It's covered under the roik category. Tana roika. Once it says roika, it covers all these similar discharges which I learned from the pasuk of V'chi Yaruk. V'chadasim Yirabuya. Okay, we continue with Hashem tomorrow. Let's just recap today's daf. We started with Basar HaMeis, which is metame certainly. The chiddush is even when it's the yavish. So when it's moist, it's metame according to all. When it dries to a certain degree, it's metame according to all. What if it's africh efruchi, which is the next level of dryness, which is brittle? So it depends. According to Rish Lakish, l'chol tumas, it covers even that. According to Rabbi Yechon, it has to be similar to the etzem, and that's a bit too dry for it to retain its tumah. All agree if it's akmach v'afra, it's already like soil, it certainly loses its tumah. In general, only something which contains the features of an etzem are going to be metame. A niver imoy, created with the person himself, as opposed to, let's say, teeth which come on later, and also ingizeh machlav, irreplaceable. So that exempts seyar, tzipirin, shinaim, skin is a machlaikis, and basar certainly qualifies. We learned that the zoiv of a zav is metame. We have two psukim. One is to introduce the concept, one is to describe the extent. Roik as well as metame. Maga b'masa, tami adam, tami begadim. Similar bodily fluids as well, covered from V'chi Yaruk, Kichai v'nir, according to Rabbi Yechon, even me'af. Whereas according to Rav, me'af per se are not a mayim. It's only because they are channeled through the mouth and affected by the tzchuchei haruk. We started with a brisa, giving us three categories, some which are discounted, some items are mashkin, matami to mashkin, and then we have ma'ayonis, like the roik, etc., which are matami to machamura and avatuma, matami adam, matami begodim. Okay, continue with Hashem tomorrow. In the meantime, all the best to you and Hatzlacha Rav.